everyone. Welcome to the Vegan Stew. And I'm messing with my phone trying to get this to show up on it. So we're back. This is our final show of June. And happy Pride because we're finally going to talk about it. It's been an interesting month for the Stew crew. And we are excited to not just talk about Pride on this show, but to talk about current events because we're women and a lot has happened in the last week since we've been on, and we can't let that go by without having a conversation. So if you want to be part of that conversation, you know to put the information in the little comment box and we'll definitely address it. So let's say thank you to our sponsors, which is this month Cotton Branch is sponsoring our live talks. Check them out at cottonbranch.org. Amazing festival in Columbia, South Carolina this past weekend with them as our partner. And if you want to enter and win some prizes, it's only a couple days left of June before we change the contest completely. July is going to be completely different. Same prize packs, actually a ninth prize pack. I'll tell you about that in a second. But if you go to virtualadventurouslive.com, hit the contest tab, you can win a prize pack by going to our wish pond. And those will be from Terra Seed, Hodo Foods, Veg Key, Follow Your Heart, Revolution Gelato, Revel Cheese, Cinnaholic, and Fabulous. And coming in July, our newest sponsor is Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce. And we're super excited about that. They're locals to my community here, amazing people. And you can win a ninth prize pack in July when we announce our newest contest. It's going to be completely different. So be prepared. More chances for all of you to win and a great way to help and support our sponsors. Remember to go to YouTube and click the notification button and subscribe to our channel. That would be greatly appreciated. Let me bring in the Stew crew. We have a small crew tonight, but mighty. Definitely mighty. Kimberly from Did You Bring the Hummus? Marla Rose from Vegan Street.
Hi.
And we've got Nnaus from Gotham the Raw and Gotham the Raw logo because Nnaus's kids are not feeling well. So they're going to be in and out with us, which is great. But who's doing the news? I have no idea. Didn't read the article. Don't know anything. Marla, let's do it.
We are a well-oiled machine. Right. I'm happy to do the news. Just two brief items. One is 13 bipartisan lawmakers in the United States sent a letter to the commissioner of the FDA asking for the FDA to create clear guidelines to drug makers to meet regulatory approvals using animal-free testing. As many of us in the vegan world and the animal rights world know, animal testing is not only cruel in the pharmaceutical industry, but it's also incredibly inefficient and it's very hard to extrapolate the physiology of a mouse and assume that humans have the same reactions to different drugs and stuff. It's definitely time to modernize and to, make it more efficient and less cruel. So that's a very good sign. Very rarely do people work across the aisle. So that's really good news there. Did anyone have any comments on that little bit of news? If not, I can move on to the next news item.
Go for it.
I think we need that typewriting sound. Just to, like,
I know. That'd be great. And
exactly.
Marla.
And the next item is this is research just presented at the American Society for Nutrition, their annual meeting. It's not exactly earth-shattering, but it's good to continually get reaffirmations about this. Diets rich in fruits and vegetables reduce breast cancer risk in postmenopausal women by 14%. So, as we know, eating a plant-centered diet has all kinds of benefits, and every day it seems like we're getting more and more affirmation that this helps in so many different spheres of health. So I just thought that was worth sharing. Yes, Kimberly.
I think it was Dr. Greger, I think, but recently a doctor had said that also for post or women who are starting to go through menopause, that if they eat a good amount of soy, I don't remember how much, so maybe I shouldn't have said anything at all. But anyway, women who eat a lot of soy don't experience the same, typically don't
Yeah,
experience the same like hot flashes and like all of that. So I
right.
mean, we're all different. So even
Mhm,
if 95% of people eat soy and don't experience it, some people will. But
mhm.
that was
Right.
also really exciting because I love me some tofu. And as I head into that part of my life, I'm hoping that I'm one that gets to benefit from that.
Right.
Well, it's interesting
Helene.
because
Mhm.
it was PCRM.
Okay.
So it wasn't Dr. Gard. PCRM actually did a study, and I have a friend who did it, and it's not tofu. It's actual soybeans cooked like
Oh,
in the
like
Instant Pot, and
edamame and
a half a cup a day, not edamame,
oh,
actual soybeans, dried soybeans that you cook like you would cook a bean in the Instant Pot,
okay.
half
Who's
a cup
doing
a
that
day.
these days?
Yeah, half a cup a day will help
Mhm.
with menopausal symptoms. And for
Mm,
her, it did. With the hot flashes is really what it's for.
interesting.
Yeah, so I learned I was thinking I could just eat edamame, like
Right.
frozen edamame,
Mhm.
and she corrected me, which is why I'm saying that to you. So
Right.
it
Thank you.
just
Well,
it's
maybe you
yes.
can, but they didn't study that, right?
Well, the study is the soybeans, and that
Mhm,
works.
mhm.
So if
Okay.
you have the menopausal symptoms, you're heading in that direction. I mean, organic. I
Yeah.
wouldn't
Mhm.
do it on organic. So that's something you can definitely
Mhm.
look into. If you're headed that direction, kind of like I'm living. So that's there was something that I wanted to say for Kimberly. That, I wanted to bring up being vegan and getting sick because right now I have 4 friends with breast cancer.
Mhm,
And the thing is, they're all vegan.
mhm,
Okay. Two of them, two of them, it was their first mammogram.
mhm.
One is in her 30s and young with kids, breastfeeding, and I mean, vegan, healthy. And first mammogram, really bad cancer,
Oh, wow.
right? The other one, same type of cancer, but had mammograms closer to my age. And the other
Right.
one, 40, first mammogram, cancer. Wasn't allowed to get a mammogram sooner because her insurance wouldn't allow it.
Right. Mhm,
Paid out of pocket to get the one she got.
mhm.
Came out with cancer.
Yeah.
So I say this because one, as vegans, we can get cancer. Our
Right.
genetics are our genetics. So
Mhm.
that's something to consider. Can it be better? And Marley, you know this. Can it be better because you're whole food plant based or you're vegan? I believe so. I believe it definitely plays an impact on what's going on with your body.
Mhm.
However, we can get sick. And if you're female, we're just going to do this. It's just going to be like an all female pro show, and our choices and our rights.
Mhm.
Please get a mammogram. Please
Mhm.
go to the OBGYN. Please get everything you can, as far as I'm concerned, on an annual basis. Because doctors tell you not to or tell you no, advocate for yourself because they're not going to.
Right.
The fact that the two of them at such young ages had their first
Mhm.
mammogram and came out with
Mhm.
cancer
Mm.
blows me away, upsets me beyond belief.
It's so
And
sad.
the one with the really, it's not good. It's stage 4 of
Mhm.
cancer. That's the highest stage for it. So,
Mm.
3 kids, very great person, a great personality on her, that she's got an obnoxious, sarcastic personality that comes through as she talks about it. But they're all open about what they're going through, and it's not fun. So that's my thing there. And then Marley, you can add to that because you've lived through, someone you love having cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was going to mention, and I'm sure if you look statistically, vegan women or, assigned female at birth are probably more likely to not have breast cancer. I don't know statistically, if that's exactly, what the numbers are, but yes, a dear friend of mine is now going through her second bout of cancer within, breast cancer at the same location on her breast within the last, year and a half. And then a dear friend of mine, Lisa Shapiro, died of breast cancer. And she was probably someone who did more to advance veganism than anyone I know. So it definitely happens. And this is not breast cancer, but as Helene was alluding to, my husband had leukemia, which is not connected to diet, either causation or cure. But, cancer happens, and it has been happening since human history has recorded disease. So this idea that, so this is before there was quote unquote junk food, before there was pollution, before there were all these excuses for why we try to blame people, or the environment. And cancer has been part of the human story since we know about disease. So we can do what we can to reduce the likelihood of it. And there's a lot we can do with that. But, making ourselves bulletproof is not on the table.
If only. So to lend into our main topic, which is a bunch of things, but basically, we've touched on what's going on in the world with each week, and now before we went live today was like, maybe it shouldn't be Pride. Maybe it should be what's going on with Roe versus Wade, and the fact that we have less rights than a corpse. And I said we can do it all, right? Because when we go with Pride, I can't tell you how many of my friends that are married, gay marriage, who were afraid of their marriage being dissolved, because that's what they're going to go after next, besides birth control and the abortion bill and whatever else they could do to women. And then gay couples, and I mean, what as Stephen would say, this is the first time in the history of the 280 years of the Supreme Court that they've ever taken away rights.
Right. They've reduced rights
from us, from humans here in this country. And it impacts everybody. It impacts everyone. And men think it doesn't impact them. They're living in a weird world, because it will impact you. And there's some profound things that, on your Facebook feed that comes through. One, friends that live in South Carolina, gay couple looking to move. South Carolina is the one of those states that, abortion is now completely banned. And if they get the chance to dissolve gay marriage, they'll do it with their eyes shut, easily, swipe of a pen. And they're looking to move out of that state to a state that probably will not do that. There's so many scary things here. there's so How do we even start? How do we even start this conversation? So happy Pride. We're allies. we believe in your choices and your lives, and that, bless you, Kimberly, and that you have the same rights that all of us have and should have, and live your lives the way you want to live them. Please, there's no issue here amongst the Stew crew, and I guess I could speak for all of us on that. But what if they? So Kimberly, you're still at the age where you can have a baby, right?
Yeah, in my age wise, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I mean,
but my system doesn't really work, but age wise.
But you're and now you still are too, a little older, but you could. And Nnaus lives in a state that it's over. You can't get an abortion. And Kimberly, you live in a state where you can because you're in New Jersey. And Marla, we're past that time, but you are in a state that you can. And as of right now, North Carolina, I can't, but I could. So, Nnaus, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
You've got some funkiness with the
Right.
feedback.
Yeah. Just a second. I'm here. Second.
Okay.
Happy Pride. I want for everybody to note, especially the communities. Pride was a riot. Let's not forget that. Let's keep up the same energy
Right.
as needed. For anybody who has a uterus, be you femme, be you actually hetero female, be you non-binary identifying, which I am, it's scary.
Mhm.
I have gotten into arguments with a lot of people, and my argument is, I'm like, you don't understand the ramifications of everything that's going on. If you have they will, in some states, even if it is ectopic, they will not allow an abortion. My first son, I was told that it was going to be an ectopic. Scared shitless. If that had happened right now, I'd be dead. Where I would have to, and I did a video about this for my very first TikTok. It wasn't the TikTok video I wanted to do, but I had to say that, you know, if this is the case where a child can be raped, incest comes into play. I was in my when my uncle did what he did. Luckily, I fought him off. Advantage of me in a situation mentally fucked with my head.
Right.
If it had passed, I'd be having to carry that child. The very fact that other things were not being taken into account in terms of the mental state of some individuals. You don't know what they're going on, where health-wise they may not be able to carry. I've had 2 C-sections back to back. I got pregnant 6 weeks after our first. 4 weeks after I had a child, I went to work. 2 weeks after I had our second one, I went to work. Not because I wanted to. I had no choice. And I was afraid. Enough said. So my body cannot handle another C-section. That is a lot. I screamed so loudly from the rooftop, women are not livestock. It scares me to know, and people are forgetting, that this is about to go after too. It's right on the table. Literally, it's like there's no filter anymore. So same-sex marriage, same-sex sex, interracial marriage, separation now, segregation. That's the next. They where why don't businesses refuse service to any person, anybody who is LGBTQ? It goes beyond abortion here. Not getting it. Contraceptives are on the table. People don't realize that birth control is not just for preventing pregnancy. If you have PCOS, if you have anything else, blood clotting conditions, it's not just the baby. It's control.
Right.
I will say the only thing that makes and gives me hope is that, number one, gender years don't play. I have seen they have put the Supreme Court, they're doxing the crap out of them on TikTok. They're finding, okay, who went ahead and did this. They are not playing. As a millennial parent, I am so proud, and I cannot see it. Gen Z is like this. Wait till Generation Alpha comes into play. Holy crap! So it's now it's great to see so many veterans that are like, this is not what we fought for. That they know. No. people are taking down their flags. They're like, this is celebrating the 4th for what exactly? You know, what are you doing? People that are, you know, attorneys, things like that, in these states that have had meetings and say, we're going to prosecute, they're like, hell no, we're going to do what's right. We're not. And judges are like, nope, they are going against it. It makes me so happy to see that. If this is you, people were going to go, it's silently into the night and just sit there. No.
Right.
People who are silent, it speaks volumes. And it right to that fact of where when the election came with Trump, all people who I knew who really showed themselves, and as a person who has a disability because I have seizures, I am a person of color. I am within the marginalized groups. I am queer. You're dead silent. I have children who are mixed race, biracial children. For you to sit there and not say anything and just not even understand about what's going on to people, that what's happening to people. I don't care if I've known you for an hour, for a year, for 10 years, for a lifetime. You came back. I recognize. Now done. You are showing who you are. It goes to show the same issue right here. The women have a right to do whatever they choose with their body. Whoever has a uterus does. We have a right we wish to love. You have no say. It's a control issue. And then people forget to realize an abortion is 15 years. That's more than the rapist. And felony or a misdemeanor, when you're a felon, you can't what? Vote. And hold the highest. That's how we make change.
Right.
So this is, I've cried. I've gotten angry. I watched my mom cry. You know, I called her, you know, we're like, what do we do? You know, or not necessarily what do we do, but like, here's what we have to do. Every emotion comes into, but now it's like, okay, this is not the 70s.
But it is. So
without it's not the same here. We will make sure if this is a fight that you want, we go down. I'm fighting. If we go down, then we go down together.
Yeah.
So
the Billy Joel song. We
yes.
all go down together. Hey, John. Let's see what John has to say. Then, Marla, I know you have something to say. So every single anti-abortion argument is based on right-wing Christian dogma. The First Amendment clearly calls for separation of church and state. Well, that went out the window this week, too. Therefore, every argument against abortion is unconstitutional.
Right.
Unless the Supreme Court.
Well, it seems like, you know, the Supreme Court doesn't seem like they are making some really bold moves right now. They're taking on cases that they used to not, because it was too controversial. They have a super majority now. They're appeasing the people who installed them, and the people who installed them, their bases. So there's a few things I wanted to say. And one of the things that is really important that I think people are quick to point out is, you know, they are not, and stopping with Roe, overturning Roe. But if they were, that would be enough. If they were, that will cause so much suffering, so many unnecessary deaths. That will cause so much, you know, so many people living in abusive situations for those to worsen. If they ended there, which they are not, that would be enough to give a shit. One of the books I read a few years ago is about strategically the problem with empathy. And we tend to associate empathy with compassion. There's actually someone who has studied the problems with empathy from a psychological point of view. And the problem with empathy is that you tend to believe that you understand how somebody else feels. Now, you tend to believe that you understand how those most like you, who look most like you, who have similar experiences and come from similar backgrounds, feel. So the people who were full-throated in their endorsement for Trump, they were responding from an empathic point of view. And so when people are not caring about the overturning of Roe v. Wade because it, quote unquote, doesn't concern them, that is a problem with empathy, because we should be able to look at a subject and say, this doesn't affect me personally, but I care about this because it hurts people, because it has a huge impact. So, you know, one of the other things that I'm hearing a lot is irritation and anger at the elected Democrats who have failed to codify Roe for all these years and never failed to fundraise around it. So I don't care what a congressperson's personal opinion is about Roe v. Wade. I care about action. I care about getting that concrete. This unfortunately, Roe was considered an issue of privacy, and that's just not a very stable footing for a constitutional right. And it's the same thing with gay marriage. It's the same thing with contraception access. The people who, the conservative judges who are looking at it from an originalist perspective, which is all the conservative judges, they're looking at it from the perspective of a time when women were basically chattel, when, you know, there was no openness about, you know, anything but heteronormative whatever.
But Marla, they can't look at it like that. There's 3 women on that court. The women wouldn't be allowed to be there, nor would Clarence Thomas.
Right. And there is one who's basically straight out of Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale, conservative female judge. You know, I really wish that it wouldn't have changed anything, but I wish that Ruth RBG had retired while there was ample time for Obama to replace her. So
they wouldn't have let it happen. It would have started with her. McConnell would have started with her.
The reason for the McConnell obstructing was he said it was, you know, a sitting duck, a lame duck thing. That was ridiculous that they let that hold. That was absolutely on the Democrats, that they believed that somehow Hillary would get elected and put the right. But anyway, the point is we can't leave anything to chance, not with this court. Susan Francis wrote, they can still codify Roe with enough Democrats in Congress. AOC said that last night. I believe that's true, but it's just a matter of getting enough, you know. And people are more concerned, and I understand the concern. We have the same concerns about, you know, pocketbook issues. I'm hoping people will do the right thing and vote with, you know, for what's right as well.
Yeah, what's right for every female that you know. There's some ridiculous arguments. I mean, everything, Marla, everything you said is valid, and this Supreme Court constitutionalist stuff is just bullshit, because they can't. Here's what Steve and I talk about. Because we drove a lot in the last 5 days, and the three liberal judges. Don't you think they're like screaming? They're sitting there having these arguments, right?
The writing was on the wall all along, you know.
I know, but how do they sit there and not scream at them? I mean, how do they even stay dignified? How do they sit there and watch the 6 of them destroy people's
Who
lives?
All, by the way, they all lied on the stand about the likelihood of overturning.
Yeah, I mean, there's just the problem, Susan. The problem with getting rid of the filibuster is that if the Republicans get the control back, or when they get the control back, they will take it to their advantage.
Yes.
That's the fear, I think, of why they don't get rid of it now. But it's just scary. It's so scary. I
Very
just don't understand how anyone could sit in that room and take rights away. I don't see. There's there was a meme that said something along the lines of, when women get pregnant, like, the afraid for the men that, you know, are part of that. Or the, no, when women get pregnant and they die because of childbirth, aren't you concerned? And the meme said, I'm more concerned for the men that are going to murder those women because they got pregnant, because they can't get an abortion. And remember, men kill women all the time because they get pregnant with the ability to get an abortion, because
Right.
they don't either want to get divorced because it'll cost them too much money to take care of that woman and that child.
Mhm.
They choose murder over money.
Right. In
And
this
let
country,
alone, go
yeah,
ahead.
we do not prioritize safety nets on any level. So, you know, a girl, a woman, a non-binary person with a uterus who winds up pregnant, you know, this has been pointed out again and again and again about the forced birther community. It's just that there are no support structures in place for helping those who are in dire straits. And I'm not even talking medically in dire straits, who are just in desperately abusive scenarios. It's, as we know, they care way more about, you know, embryos and fetuses than they do viable human lives. And that's just the fact of the matter. It's just clear as day from everything that they show. It doesn't, so, like, I know in my state, or in other states that are still, you know, still have access to terminating pregnancies, you know, I definitely encourage people to donate to causes like, in Chicago, in Illinois, there's something called Midwest Action Coalition, where we're going to be setting up, they're going to be setting up homes, safe places for people from out of state. We are, like, Illinois is a little bubble surrounded by, you know, very restrictive places, and people are coming from as far away as Texas to terminate pregnancies. So as I heard someone say earlier today, this also means people in the state who are local, who it still is legal, are going to be negatively impacted by the overflow, the overfilling of these fewer facilities. So it is going to have this ripple effect.
There was something that was written that was part of one of a friend's post today with the comments, right? And one woman said, it was all about birth control. It should just be freely accessible and everyone should have it. And that'll help. You don't need abortion because, well, everyone will have birth control. Because I taught my kids had birth control by the time they were 16. They understood. I communicated that. And I was like, you live in a bubble. You
Right.
haven't read the room. You haven't read the room, because just because you do that, have you looked around? What parent does that? And they want to get rid of sex ed in schools on top of that,
Yeah.
in these
Well,
red
that's
states, these
consistent.
Republican
That's
states.
consistent.
I mean,
They're
that's just,
fundamentalists. Yeah, they're fundamentalists. And it's just like the gun laws in, well, I mean, every way you look at it, it's just so it's so beyond hypocritical that hypocritical is definitely not an appropriate word for it. But like with gun laws, the trend is to leave it to the states. With reproductive rights, it's to have this governmental overreach. And like in Texas, for example, where they're claiming that these mass shootings are happening because of mental illness. Now, like, the United States does not have, you know, a lock on mental illness, yet we do have a lock on these mass shootings. But like in Texas, they have some of the worst access to mental health care. So like none of it ever makes sense. You know, like they're blaming it on that while they're gutting the access. So it like none of it is ever consistent, you know.
No, it's never consistent. And then you go back to, let's bring it back to pride, bring it back to gay marriage, bring it back to, you know, you sit and you think they couldn't take rights away, you know, like they couldn't just by a pen say that your marriage is completely dissolved. I mean, that's what you thought before Roe was gone.
Right.
Right? But they could literally take
absolutely.
people whose marriages and just say, the state you're in doesn't recognize your marriage anymore. It just blows my mind that you would, that people that are other human beings who live amongst us or are in control of such important things, like their rule is that
it's so few. Yeah.
And that they could even, how do they even sleep at night? How do they go to bed knowing how much they've impacted negatively so many people just because they want babies born?
They don't care.
There you go.
They don't care. Don't care. The thing that is horrifying, it's not, are they coming for us? No. That is on the table next. Medical privacy is also gone. Privacy in the bedroom. They were asking, someone asked, oh, well, what do you mean privacy in the bedroom? What do you think that can do? There was an actual case that happened where there is a couple, sex couple, they're married. They were having sex. They were being intimate, as married couples do, or people that love each other do. The neighbor said they heard a noise that was disruptive, called the police on them. They were both arrested. What they were doing in their bedroom as a married couple, because they didn't please Karen, caused them to be arrested. They are for something that doesn't involve them because they do not want to be. As was stated by one of the viewers, yes, this is all right doctrine. This is what they're doing. If you're not one of these or anything like that, they're taking it so far back. They were already knocked down and gotten rid of. People were surprised by this. I was like, oh, you thought it was just abortion. Miranda rights are gone.
Right. Yeah.
They are gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not, it's literally like, okay, this right here was what do you call it? The gun, the kegger. It has exploded. So now whatever they're trying to do, they're just going for whatever they feel does not suit them.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then you go, right. And then now you go to, I want to get a job in a school. Because I have a master's in education. I want to get a job in a school, and I want to go pray to Satan. I want to bring the kids in and go into a public place on the school property and just make shit up and make it as offensive as possible, but it's my religion. And you can't do a thing about it because it's not just Catholicism that got the right to pray on school campuses. It's religion. Right. And they didn't think that through because I'm waiting for when one teacher comes out who's Muslim and all the kids are dressed up, women have the burqas on, and they put the mats down and they start praying on the field, and the parents to go absolutely freaking ballistic. There's nothing they can do about it because it's legal now.
There's a TikTok. There's a TikTok on what you just said. There's a TikTok spoof on what you just said, doing that, where someone is Muslim, their teacher is Muslim and completely covered in a burqa and telling kids, let's go ahead and pray. And then there are people that are like, we have free, time to practice. And they're like, Satanism, come on in. Like, oh yeah, how many of us pagans? How many of us? Look, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Nothing. We didn't think about this at all.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it. They just, best for them.
Yeah.
But I really
Yeah.
actually know what, they don't think it through. I mean, I don't know how they don't. All they do is watch something like TikTok, but they probably don't. And they, and see like what people are ingenious. They're just what Americans and people around the world come up with to counter these type of things is brilliant. And for me to get a job in a school, I don't need the job. So I wouldn't care if I got fired, but then I'd have a lawsuit. You can't fire me.
Right.
Because of that. So it's a very interesting thing. So I can't wait to see what happens. And when they do get fired, what do? Do they go as far to say it's only Catholicism? Because they can do that. They have that supermajority. I don't know where it says that in the Constitution, since it's supposed to be a separation of church and state.
Right.
But they seem to be pulling stuff out of their ass, as to what they can decide for all of us.
The original writers of the Constitution were, white Christian men. But even they had a better grasp on the separation,
Right. Well, Stephen said the checks and balances are there, and Congress is the checks. We talked about this the whole ride home yesterday. The checks and balances on the Supreme Court is Congress. That's why Congress can codify into the Constitution a law, a rule, an amendment that says you have these rights.
Right.
And that supersedes the Supreme Court. That's the only thing that does.
Well, a lot of what we're dealing with is so complex that it's almost overwhelming. But part of, a lot of what we're dealing with is minoritarian rule, and that goes back to the whole issue of, the Electoral College, of the relative few having an outsized impact on the laws, and the law of the land, and a lot of this goes back to 19th century, even even before, but just like appeasing the slave holding states, it's absolutely backwards. And part of the problem is the right wing has been incredibly organized and unified in redistricting, in all matters of, making it harder for votes to count in districts that don't, typically vote in their direction, making it harder for Black and brown votes to, just the idea that they would be more restrictive of votes, because they know that the more people vote, the more people favor progressive policies. That's just a fact, so there's a lot that I don't even know how to wrap my head around it, but there's a lot that needs to be undone and a lot that needs to be fixed. And it's really overwhelming, I don't even know what to say, but I have long wished that this whole idea of states' rights, of things coming down to states, I just wish that things were just more, this is the way our country is, if you, rather than it going to this, and that again harkens back to the 19th century and appeasing the slaveholders. But yeah, I have no idea what to do. But there's a lot that needs to be done.
Vote. I mean, vote. Get everyone to know to vote. That's it. And not in 2 years. This year.
Yeah.
And next year and the year after. You vote local every matters. Time.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Local matters, because if you want your school boards and your Secretary of State to be like stealing elections from you, don't vote. I don't know how you live. How do you bury your head in the sand? While
run for local office, run for local positions, is unfortunate, but
yeah, but you open yourself up to that horrible world that they're in when you run for office. Right. It's just disgusting.
It's going to take it's going to take
Wait, go ahead. You're breaking
those
up.
of us
Go
that are
ahead.
not, those of us that are angry enough to say, excuse my language, stand on those companies. I know what's coming our way, but I'm not going to let you down. You may not like the fact that I'm on the side of right, and I'm not going to do anything with corruption just because you are so freely in it and your head is up it. No, I'm going to go ahead and run. I'm going to go ahead and do what you are not doing. I'm so emboldened with just like, this fight is going to be not where we can be like, yeah, we're like, what do we do? But then to have.
Oh, Nnaus cut off. Kimberly, what do you have to say?
I mentioned this on my Monday show, so sorry if anyone's already heard this, but I started reading this book a couple weeks ago called The Woman They Could Not
You
Silence.
guys hear me?
Sorry, Nnaus. Kimberly's going to talk.
Hi.
You're breaking up, though. So, go ahead, Kimberly.
So I started reading this book called The Woman They Could Not Silence by Kate Moore. And it's about a woman named Elizabeth Packard, who in the 1860s, her husband was a pastor, and he started kind of changing the way his church was running. And Elizabeth said, I don't like this. This isn't in alignment with what we believe, what I always thought you believed. And she started speaking out and kind of started her own little prayer group for people who didn't like where the church was going. He had her committed to what they called back then an insane asylum. And he could do that because he was her husband. And back then, women could be committed because their husbands wanted to. And if they weren't married, then that meant that whoever the authoritative male in their life, an older brother, their father, if their father was still around, could just decide, she's too much. I can't handle this. And women would just be committed and left to live there for, some women were there, I'm only about halfway through the book, 10 plus years before they were able to get out. And, as I'm reading this, I'm obviously very angry, and Elizabeth wound up doing a lot of work to help change kind of the way those laws were. But I'm angry, and at the same time thinking, it doesn't feel like the 1860s were all that long ago as things start to change, as rights are being removed. Like how many of those people on the Supreme Court, including one of the women I can think of, wouldn't be okay with being back there where the men are back in charge completely and get to decide when someone is too much. They just get to go away and no one has to deal with them anymore. And it's a really slippery slope, I think, and it's really scary.
That came up today. I went to the Young Turks, and some politician in some stupid state, they don't want women who have abortions to go to jail. They want the doctors to get prosecuted. But they said, well, maybe that's changing. Now they do want to prosecute women. But they were like, well, we really don't want them to go to jail. So maybe when a woman has an abortion, we send them to get committed for a period of time.
It's not funny.
Oh, so my feeling was not so far off, huh?
Right. No,
Nope,
and I think
it's come up. Go ahead.
That's the thing is, I think they realize what boogeymen they are and what terrible PR they have that is deserved. And so when they're saying things like, we don't want to arrest the women, we just want to educate them or whatever, I fully believe they are capable of anything and willing to do anything. Like I believe that The Handmaid's Tale is like an instruction manual. It's not dystopian. It's really reality. And I think we need to get our heads out of our asses because they're not just signaling, they're showing us exactly the path that we're on. And it's terrifying. And I really wish that we could get like the UN in here and, save us all.
Yeah, there's the what was the other thing? What about the Utah person, politician, whatever the hell she is, saying we need, as women, we need to control the amount of sperm that goes into us when we're having sex with a man? She said
that was a revelation to me. I had no idea we had those powers.
Well, exactly. Like Young Turks were like, what the no, it was Trevor Noah, who said, yeah, so women can control the on-off switch, the little
Right.
Yeah.
spigot of sperm from a man's penis that goes inside of you, because that works. Most men can't control when they ejaculate. They can't control it. There are some that can, but most can't.
Yeah. It's like the politician who said, women don't typically, he would say women don't typically get pregnant in the cases of rape and incest because their bodies have a way of shutting that down.
Right. I remember that.
Right, because you're not ovulating when it happens. That's how that works. Gosh, science is so important. I mean, just if you're going to have sex with a woman or a man or whatever, whoever you're going to have sex with, you need to understand the science behind it. So that you understand what you're getting into and what diseases you could possibly get and what you could do to that person, from pregnancy to death because of HIV. What's it called? Monkeypox? shared during sex. That's one of the ways it gets spread. You need to know these things.
Nope, it's now sex now.
What was that?
Sorry. It's not just sex now. It's just human to human contact period now.
Right. I have heard that. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. I figured it morphed into something more, but originally they were like, well, it's men, gay. They said that gay people were getting it. And that was just like the worst thing in the world they could put out there, was that, it's now a gay disease. And it's like, yo.
And I think they also tried to connect it to Africa also.
Yep. That pissed me off.
Because that's how we operate here in our white male hegemony. It's disgusting.
I wish Kelly was here to talk about what's going on in Canada, because everything that we do, their prime minister steps up and says, we'll never do that. He came forward and said, any woman here in this country can go to Canada and get an abortion and it'll be paid for. He went as far as that. So if people along the northern border, which a lot of people cross over very easily to work, I remember during COVID, Canadian friends were looking forward to be able to come back over to our border, cross over, to be over here. One thing about Canada that I don't think we realize, and I learned this over COVID, is that they had a lot of shortages of food during COVID, and the cost of everything was very expensive.
Yeah.
So we are very spoiled in the sense that we pretty much during COVID had anything we wanted at our fingertips. It's probably worse now with, gas prices and shortages and supply shortages with the war in Ukraine and all that. But during COVID, they didn't have everything, and everything was very expensive. So they'd come over to our country to get stuff, and they couldn't because the borders were closed. So it's like, but now we can cross over. Women, if you didn't know that Trudeau said they will provide an abortion to an American woman if necessary on their dime.
That's awesome. Well, and in Illinois, the mayor of Chicago said, this is a sanctuary state for that. A lot of the places are fully funding the abortion through donations too. So, I mean, a lot of times it's a matter of not having the time, having, childcare if you already have children and that sort of thing. So it's not necessarily a simple proposition, and the fact is this should still be a guaranteed constitutional right. We should not be having to figure out these different little networks. It's disgusting and appalling and horrifying that they want to kill us.
And you go a step further, and we are for an advanced nation. We our mortality rate for women when they're pregnant is the worst out of all of the most advanced nations.
Yeah, and the states that are the most restrictive on that are going to either adopt, immediate trigger laws or it's on the docket, have the highest maternity death rates. So there's that.
Right. And of course, people of color, BIPOC community impacted even more because they have an even higher rate of mortality during pregnancy. Because we've touched on that on the show before, that people of color, BIPOC community, the medical community just doesn't take them seriously, which is, the medical community doesn't take BIPOC community seriously when they're ill. And we're talking about courts and justices and politicians. That's a whole medical community that also is racist and bigoted towards a large percentage of our population, causing people to potentially die because they don't take something seriously. If only we could end this show today with a way that this can be fixed. Like outside of just vote. But it's who you vote for as well. And then there's the choices of who you have to vote for. Even if you vote blue, it doesn't mean that you're going to get somebody like Manchin or Sinema as your representative.
Right. And insisting on our elected officials being very, letting them know how seriously we take these issues, and that we need to see action. And, I think, like running for local offices sounds like a nightmare to me, but that's what the right wing is doing. And we have to know that,
Nnaus, I didn't know. Did you know?
What?
Look at Nnaus.
I can't. What happened?
Wait, Nnaus, come back. Yeah, I didn't know. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Did I wear a wig?
Yeah, I didn't know.
You're lovely.
Oh, honey, that's the great thing about that. Everything is possible. Yeah. Yeah, I just said right now, I was just like,
it looks nice and comfortable and cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful either way, but I had absolutely no idea. So I just wanted to dress. Oh, sorry, puppy. Oh, I just stepped on my dog. Sorry.
Sweet babe.
Yeah. You're breaking up, though. We can't understand you.
Hear me?
No, it's breaking up, so it's terrible. It's like a lot of static, Yeah, I know.
Frustrating.
It is. So, Kimberly, you have anything else to say?
No, I don't think so. I unfortunately don't have an answer either.
No answer.
I think there is no one answer. We just need to, be as strategic and as just resilient and tireless as the right wing. We have to be that and more. So that's the only thing I can say.
Yeah. And just don't let this, just like we can't stop thinking about the children in Uvalde and all the others that have been gunned down in schools. It's like we can't stop thinking about, the loss of Roe and the rights of women. And we can't stop thinking about the potential of gay marriage being reversed and contraception being taken away. and and a world where the Republicans get control of Congress and codify abortion as something that the whole country cannot have.
Yeah. And they could do that if they get the presidency and they get both.
Or they get enough of a majority, they could override the veto. So if that's not reason enough for everyone who watches this and for everyone you know, and then everyone they know, to vote and to say something, stand up and do something. If you do nothing, shame on you. Really, shame on you if you do absolutely nothing with what's going on in our society, in this country. I don't care if you live in California and New York, where you're safe, or in Illinois, New Jersey. I don't care. You have to start thinking about the people that aren't.
Right.
And that's your neighbors, that's your friends, that's the people you just need. We learned during a pandemic, during COVID, that people don't care about other people.
Yeah.
People didn't care if they killed other people by their inaction or actions.
Definitely
And that was supposed to be the time where we learned better, and we didn't. So here we are again, where we need to do right by one another. And there's more people that are liberal in this country than there aren't.
Yeah.
Do something. Mm-hmm. Apathy is not okay.
It kills.
It is literally going to kill. And you know people with daughters. You know people with children. Do something.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to say before we close out?
I was just going to say, it shouldn't matter if you have a uterus, if you know someone who has a uterus. All that matters is, it's just like that whole way that men say, don't harass women, don't degrade women, don't rape women because you have mothers and sisters and daughters. No, you don't do those things because they are not the right thing to do. It's the same thing with reproductive rights. You protect them because it is the right thing to do, whether or not you personally know someone or you personally benefit. And if you're living in the world, you know someone this affects. So looks like we lost Mouse. There's no more Mouse in the house.
Yeah, it's funny. This morning I said, maybe because most boys when they're born, especially the Jewish religion, get circumcised at a few days old. I was like, well, maybe as little boys they need to have vasectomies. And then they can get that reversed when they're old enough to afford to get the reversal, which means they could probably afford to have children. Why not? They're already snipping. No. What's the difference? It's reversible. All the men are like, oh my gosh, you went there. So okay, Stu Crew. Are we good? We're good. We'll get back to doing this in a couple of weeks. Hopefully without any more stuff that just happens to come up.
We'll all be in labor camps by then.
Yeah, let's not bring that into being. Okay, I'm going to close this out. Thank you, Marla. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Nnaus. So thank you once again for joining us for the Vegan Stew. Please do something and don't stop talking and keep on, I don't know, just vote and keep the conversation going, because we need to, and we need to be aware of how this is going to impact women, men, gay people, BIPOC community. It's going to impact all of them, all of us. And if you think it doesn't impact you with Roe vs. Wade and you're male, what? You're going to be paying for babies because you can't get rid of them. So in certain states. So let's see. We will be back in 2 weeks. Coach Kayla is the first Wednesday of the month, so she'll join you at 7 p.m. next week. And we will be back in 2 weeks with some conversation about some topic. I don't know what that is. I won't be part of the Stu Crew that night. I will be away, but everyone else should be with you. We hope you have a incredible night. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and to hit the notification button and to go to virtualvetfestlive.com and enter our wish pond till the end of June. And then the new one will be in July, which will be awesome. And thank you to Cotton Branch for sponsoring our lives for the month of June. Everyone else, have a great night and, do something relaxing. Good night.